new legislation that has to do with land use. And that's a part of the business that city gets into intimately. And so we had a very good explanation of the changes that have occurred in land use due to recent legislation. And there's a special session that I think is going on right now. And there are more rules and laws and legislation that is on the books to be voted on there. We also heard from the Department of Workforce Services. They notified the council that due to COVID, due to a flood, due to about anything else that happened, they are going to close their Midvale office. It will be effective, I suspect, by the 1st of July, the fiscal year for the state. But they're going to be out of there and completely. And they are inviting anyone to go to their Southtown agency that's located in Taylorsville. And they noted that 80 to 90% of their past clientele is already transitioned over there. And so we brought up our special considerations that we hope they always continue, and that is contact with the Road Home Family Resource Center for the homeless, our Life Start Village for those making new starts in life, and certainly for all of our citizens who need employment assistance. It's available online, it's available in person. It just will take a little longer drive, a couple of miles, 3 miles to get to their other agency in Taylorsville. So we appreciate the heads up there. Well, we want to welcome everybody, and our normal routine is to begin with a Pledge of Allegiance. So would you please stand with me and repeat the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Rory, would you call the roll?
Yes. Councilmember Robinson.
Here.
Gettle.
Here.
Brown.
Here.
Sperry.
Here.
And Glover.
Here.
Great, thank you all. Our next item on general business is a report from our Unified Fire Authority. Chief Brad Larson has been kind enough to once again come and give us the latest scoop on staying out of trouble with the fire department.
I'll sure do my best on that, Mayor. It's good to be with all of you. Is this the first time the entire council's been together in over a year?
Yeah, probably.
It is.
Yep.
That's remarkable. I'm so glad to see that, and so I'm glad I'm here to be able to give this report and meet with you. Before I jump into our quarterly report, our January through March, I'd like to just quickly give a brief report of some of our activities and things that we're doing, things that are going on. Recruit camp is in our second to last week. They graduate May 26th at the JATC in Riverton. That'll be at 6 o'clock. Any of you are welcome to come if you'd like. I encourage you to go to our Facebook page. We always have little snippets of different training activities that they go through. It's very interesting and always worth a good watch. And on that line, I know that some of you are interested in fire school. I spoke to one of our union board members today, and they're going to begin those discussions again on when to start up. They're thinking maybe early fall if we can, or early next spring. So I told them that there were some members here that were very anxious to get going on that, and told them to keep me posted, and I'll be sure and follow up with that. So you can go squirt some water and climb some ladders like Mayor Hill all the way to the top of the 110-foot aerial.
Was that how far it was?
Yeah. I
Seemed
believe
like
so.
a mile to me.
Oh, yes, I know. Yes, and when you get up there, somebody asked me, I was at the top one time, they said, "Hey, Boot, can you see clear to Idaho from up there?" So anyway, it's worthwhile, the fire school is, so I'll be sure and keep you posted on that. We finished our battalion chief promotional process. We had 10 candidates. They've all been placed on the list. So as openings occur, we pull from that list, and we have some excellent candidates for that. Battalion Chief Ross Fowkes retired recently. I know he served here in Midvale for a short time. We wish him well. So one of the battalion chiefs on that list has got a spot already. So let's see, we promoted 3 Wildland squad bosses. That's a critical leadership component in the wildland services we provide for the communities in the valley here. They help the crew work towards obtaining a hotshot status. That's like the elite part of wildland firefighting that you can get. So that's a really good thing that we've been able to do, and promote those 3 squad bosses. I'll talk briefly about our budget. May 6th, the finance committee for the UFA board met. The chief, the assistant chiefs, and the division chiefs all presented their budgets. The finance committee voted to move that forward to the UFA board, which happened this morning. And the board voted to press that forward to final adoption June 15th. If you want to go to our website, we have the tentative budget posted. It's very transparent. You can go down each division and see exactly where they're spending every dime. Starting on page 3 of that document is a very good overview of proposed increases to the budget for staffing and ambulance services and those type of things. It's all laid out very well. I encourage you to look through that, and if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me at any time. I think we have a very excellent budget process, and things are vetted very carefully. And we are very concerned about the money that we spend. We realize that it's public money and it's to provide services. We based our budget on a strategic plan that was adopted through community involvement. I know Mayor Hale, and I think, Matt, were you involved with that? The strategic plan process, we look at what's important to the communities, and that's what we base our budget on. So you're welcome to take a look at that, and please contact me should you have any questions. Mayor, you want to, anything you'd like to add on that? Or?
I have to tell you, council and our public, that the budget process for UFA this year was the best I've ever seen. It was the most understandable and a model for all interagency agencies for explaining what goes on. We had presentations from each department chief that went over, like he said, what they're going to do and how they're spending their money and what resources are being used to improve the UFA. I was extremely pleased. It was very well done. I have a copy here for anyone who would like to get a copy of the UFA budget. And we have a column in here called UFSA. There are several cities in the county that are separate. They're their own member agency, but UFSA includes us, and we have a 3.5% increase in what we are going to fund UFSA during this next budget year, fiscal 21-22, which is within the tolerance that we can adjust to. And this includes everybody from Brighton to Copperton, and there are many agencies in between. So we appreciate the UFA for this great process that has been a product of great minds that you must sit around when there's not a fire and really help each other improve this process, because it's come out very well. And a lot of public meetings and opportunities for the public to have their input. Thank you, Chief Larson.
Well, thank you, Mayor. And again, on page 3, it starts explaining those increases very well and lays it out. And there are even provisions in there where you can see what your fire inspector costs your city. And it breaks it down by each city and each entity. So it's very comprehensive. Our chief and our financial director did a really good job on it. So thank you.
Well, give us an update on 125.
Things are moving forward there. I know that Chief Burchett had been, he'd given a presentation at the workshop on the exterior and the colors, and I know the architect's working on that. I think they're going to be breaking ground before too long. I haven't heard anything. Chief Burchett's out of town, so I wasn't able to talk to him today about it, but things are moving forward there. And if I remember correctly, we're hoping within a year to have it done, something like that. So
That'll be great.
don't quote me on that, but I think that's what I heard.
I know they're talking like within a month, we're going to have ground broken.
Yeah, I think so.
So you'll see dust flying over there pretty quick.
Right. Real quickly, I'm going to go over our quarterly report. We've changed the format. I think it's better, and I think it provides some really good information. Some of this you'll recognize. For the first quarter, it gives the total number of incidents, which was 853. Of those, 34.5% were emergent, meaning they were actual 911 emergency calls. The rest end up being service calls or end up being a false call or something like that. And we end up not going with lights and sirens. And on the top far right, you'll see a 4-year monthly comparison. We're pretty steady. I noticed that for 2020, especially February and March, were a little bit higher than normal. And I'm pretty sure I would have to look at our dispatch records, but I'm pretty sure that's due to the number of COVID-related calls that we probably received during that time period. The call type is listed below the total call volume. It breaks it down for fire dispatches and EMS dispatches and lists the numbers for each of those. And then the top other fire dispatches in the middle on the right. Incoming unit responses. These are the number of times that units responded into Midvale. So it lists your station 126 and 125. And this is the number of units. It's not the number of calls. It's the number of ambulances, ladder trucks, BC rigs, any piece of apparatus we have that responded into Midvale. And it also lists Cottonwood Heights, Taylorsville, and other cities that responded in for mutual aid reasons. The emergent total time, 50% of the time from the time of the dispatch call till the time our unit arrived was 5 minutes. The 90th percentile is after that 50%, it was 8 minutes. And a lot of those are because we start out and we get slowed down to a 1040 without lights and sirens. It becomes non-emergent, or it's a service call or those type of things. This next slide is, I hope I can get the whole thing on the screen there. This breaks down where the calls were in your city. And it breaks them down by fire, fire alarm, hazmat, rescue, service calls. The total number, 852 calls, are graphed here. This next one really, I think, is even better than the previous page. This gives the call density. In other words, the darker the color is the area where more calls are concentrated. And so this gives you a really good idea of where our units are responding throughout your city most of the time. This is very good in helping us plan like where we were going to put the new station, future planning, maybe peak load times when we need to have another ambulance to kind of handle those peak call volume times. Very helpful for us. That's just a very quick rundown on the quarterly report. I know that from time to time, it's been mentioned, it's kind of nice to hear stories behind the calls. And of course, you know, we've talked about a few fires that we've had in this last quarter. And it's really hard sometimes to kind of talk about what we do in our job because, you know, we just like to do our job and go home. We don't like to bring attention to it. But I think for this body and for our citizens, a couple of quiet things that happen that don't make the news, that don't get a lot of accolades, but are just quiet acts of service that your fire crews perform. And I know that your police officers perform many on a daily basis, and they just don't get reported or talked about or heard about. The fire we had just a little while ago, you know, pets can mean a lot to individuals, especially if they're, you know, by themselves. And at the Chelsea Park Apartments fire, there was an owner that was just distraught about their pet. And the firefighters came and talked to them and found out that their pet had expired in the fire. The two crew members that went and talked to this member were very compassionate, very kind, very understanding, and very, what's the word I want to use? Sensitive, and really tried to help, comfort, console, and help this individual. Just a quiet little thing. One of your firefighters that's been here since before 2006, he's just chose to stay at the station. He loves it here. He and his partner were the first to arrive on the scene. And without hesitation, when an engine got there, they grabbed the ladder off it, went to a balcony, and grabbed a gentleman off the balcony that was laying flat on the balcony floor because of the smoke flowing over him, and he was trying to get some air. Got the gentleman down, got him to some medical assistance, and then quietly walked away and finished whatever else they were doing. Didn't want anybody to notice, just quietly went about and did their job. Mayor, you got a letter, I think in February, captain from your station 126 up here. The crew responded to give some assistance to a family. It wasn't really a medical emergency, but the family needed some help in their home. The crew walked in. It was kind of a sensitive issue that this family really needed some help and compassion and understanding with. The crew member made sure everything got taken care of for this family. Later that evening, they went back to make sure everything was still okay. These are quiet little things that happen day in and day out that you don't really hear too much about. I know, as I mentioned, the police do these kind of things. Your city staff, your employees, your community, your citizens. Everybody does little things that really make this community great. And I just thought it'd be kind of good to maybe end on that note and be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for the chief? We really appreciate UFA.
Thank you.
We're looking forward to an enlarged profile when we get the new station built. And you guys are doing great, and we want to express our appreciation for.
I certainly will, Mayor. You know, I tried to get them to put the fire prevention offices on a second floor over there, and I just couldn't quite talk the chief into it. It would have been nice to come back home for me, but
We'll make sure they build it, the wall's strong enough they can put one up there in the future.
that'd be good. Thanks.
Thank you, Chief Larson. We are now going to slip over to our public comments and open the microphone to anyone in the audience who would like to speak to the council for 3 minutes. Laura, have you got any public comments?
Yes, Mayor, I have two public comments. The first one I have is from Maureen Butler. I want to express my gratitude to this council and the developer of the Midvale Mills development for compromising, listening, working with one another to come together for the common good of the community, the neighborhood, and the city. Having stability in neighborhoods and people who want to build a community is what helps a city thrive and endure. I would encourage each developer, staff, city member, and those on the commission and council to continue to take this direction when it comes to building in Midvale. There is a proposal for a new development on the corner of State and Center that will greatly impact, compromise, and change the face of existing neighborhoods around it. Legal counsel, transit members, and developers speak of sparkling buildings, places to engage in activities with shops, and transportation options to reduce the greenhouse gases. Such buildings still house people with cars and families that drive and travel and park everywhere, but in the spaces provided for, because there is never enough parking. I am also curious about the availability of water that should be provided for such developments. I know that we have water rights, but we are in the worst drought in 30 years, and unless we have many months of substantial rainfall, we will continue in this drought for more than 5 years. I ask each of you as staff, commissioners, and council members to utilize all your efforts to change the way we develop density housing to encroach on neighborhoods that are single-family dwellings. Developers who really show a concern for the impact they are creating are valuable and appreciated by your residents, neighbors, and those who elected you. The aforementioned development on Center would look great and inviting to those who travel 7200 South every day. I appreciate the comments of those that respond to social media posts, but I know that these comments can make those on the rest of the council seem callous and uncaring. Midvale residents should be informed that council members have restrictions in responding on such sites due to rules. One day I hope to see you again, and I miss seeing the faces on Zoom. Thank you for your time. And then the second comment I have is from Spencer Mears. Every year, Midvale City reminds us about how we live in a desert and water needs to be conserved by being smart, how we water, and pretty much every year I see people posting about Midvale City watering while it's raining. And we even had one time when someone took a picture of the Midvale Park being watered with snow on the ground. I know that many residents in Midvale and several members of the City Council have asked about putting rain sensors on the sprinkler controllers. And so I was both shocked and very disappointed when I saw the Public Works Department reported that it would cost hundreds of thousands to get everything required to run with rain sensors. I understand that I don't know every single location that the city waters or what control systems and rain sensors they are looking at, but I'm pretty sure it won't cost hundreds of thousands to get the system running with rain sensors. Could you please make available the information the Public Works Department used to come to that extremely high cost so that the City Council and the residents of Midvale City can review it? I would also like to have it on the record, but not only would I like to review that information, but I would like to have the opportunity to set up a test zone with equipment that I'll purchase, and I'll donate the equipment and my time to Midvale City to show them how inexpensive and easy it can be to set up a system like this. And I'm checking just one more time for any more public comments, Mayor. And I don't have any other public comments, Mayor. That's all I have this evening.
Thank you, Laura. With that, we'll close our public comments section and move to council reports and begin with Councilmember Quinn Sperry.
The only thing this evening, Mayor, is just really enjoyed last week the opportunity that so many from the community had to participate in the musical at the high school before they tear it down, and it was great. You and I saw each other there, and I know there was a lot of media coverage with that event. I just thought it was a great event for our community. So thanks to all those who at the school that participated, all the alumni that came back, and then the people from the public who supported it.
A lot of history, a lot of memories.
Yep.
In that building. It'll be sad to see it replaced, but we've grown and the world has improved in auditoriums, sound systems and everything since then. Thank you. You had a youngster participate in that, am I right?
I did. Yep. Yeah.
She enjoyed it?
And a spouse.
And a spouse.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. You count them both young.
Yeah.
Very well. Councilmember Bryant Brown, please.
Yeah, I just want to just touch a little bit about what Spencer said, and Glenn today sent us a very comprehensive email. Like probably most of the council members, I was shocked on the amount of spaces we water. He actually doesn't include the linear park that's going to be put in. He doesn't include the fire department park that we might maintain, right? And I'm not totally convinced if we ever get this rec center, but even if we do get the rec center, I'm not convinced that the state will just say, we'll take care of everything. So there actually could be a lot more land that we have to maintain in a shorter period of time. That being said, I was also slightly aghast that we have somehow taken on the responsibility to maintaining private businesses' park strips. And I just want to go on record that I think that's an absolutely terrible thing. And we should never make that a commonplace. We run lean to begin with. We talk about that all the time. And I just can't envision why a rich company that owns a lot of land would get any of that benefit where other people that pay the same tax rate wouldn't. I've talked to some people about that today. I don't think that would be something that would continue. I just think that stretches our resources thin, and it absolutely shouldn't. I think the best way to go about this is if Glenn, I don't know if we want to talk to Spencer or something along those lines, because the way you explained it, so I put in a beehive sensor that does that's connected to the weather station, and like you said in the email, there's like 5 times a year that it triggers, right? So it's not as beneficial for something like that as people think, like maybe some other areas that get more water. But I think if we can talk to him, it makes sense. I also think as we need to replace things, we update them with new modern things that can handle any sort of rain or something along those lines. That way, I'm a big advocate of that. I'm always bugging you guys about it. But I also don't know if it's something we need to jump and change at this moment, especially with us having to maybe take on a lot more, or we don't actually know the impact of what that's going to be. Are you okay with that? Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd be more than happy to sit down with any resident that has concerns.
Perfect.
We might also start looking at putting a fund together so that we can, over a period of time,
Yeah.
change things out. Obviously, we don't have the money to do it right now, but if we start putting some away each year, we can start to do it over a period of time, and over maybe the next 5 years or so, we can end up having it done.
And I'm on board with that. I'm even more on board with getting rid of like area 10 on this map, just like getting rid of the grass there, right? Like xeriscaping that. Area 10 is just this area north of us, right? By the sun, and that could solve some of those issues too, right? Where we're just drip irrigating, desert-y plants opposed to having, full football fields grass on there. So I'm always on board with that, Councilman. Like I'd like to move for better water usage and whatnot.
Some of the first ones I know everybody is about the strips,
Mhm.
and they do take a lot of water, but we have huge areas
Yeah.
that would probably benefit more to have that type of technology in it to start with, and then move to the others. And we probably ought to have some plan over a period of time to be able to do that, is what I would say we need to look at. And if we're, going down that road, then I think we're going in the right direction.
Yeah.
But I would hate I would hate to see us lose our park grass and that. You know, I know it takes water, but it's, when we get this many people in such a small area, we need those areas.
Yeah, and that's why I want to concentrate on getting rid of the areas that aren't used for grass purposes, so we can feel better about watering the park a lot, right? Does that make sense? You know, the more we offload areas that aren't used for recreational purposes, we can put more into the recreational places. Because I want football and whatnot there. That's all I got, Mayor.
Can I
Thanks,
just
Glenn.
quickly add one thing on the linear park and the new infrastructure coming in? Those will be installed with updated equipment and systems and be connected to baseline, which is kind of our SCADA for irrigation. Most of our problem is stuff that's already in the ground.
And would you be able to automate stuff that way for rain or anything like that?
The new or the existing?
The
Sorry.
new, like those new spaces.
Yeah, we would be able to control that.
Okay.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Probably not with rain sensors, but remotely is probably.
Like you could turn them off like Saratoga Springs, but without blitzing.
Program it.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Heidi Robinson.
I have nothing tonight, but thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Paul Glover.
Yeah, the only thing I have this evening, I'm still getting complaints about traffic speeding throughout our residential areas. And I had one of our citizens, to the police, I want to give them kudos. They brought over a whole list of things we can do to calm traffic. And I'm starting to go through it. There's lines we can put down and all kinds of things. So I think we probably ought to start looking at maybe some of those suggestions that the police actually gave our citizens and see if maybe they would work for some of us. There was an interesting, I was over in Denver the last meeting, and just down the street from my daughter, they have an area that goes next to us, comes around the corner from a school. And it's a long straightaway that I'm sure people get going fairly fast on. What they've done right at the intersection, they've put two kind of islands out from each side. So there is only room for two cars to go through, and they'd be really close. So you can't go through that without slowing down and looking to see if anybody else is coming. So things like that, we could probably end up doing some of those things to help in some of those areas that we're getting a lot of complaints on.
I think as we can see by the number of people that continue to hit our our islands in the middle of the streets for pedestrians, they should slow down, but I can't guarantee they will. Yeah. Are you saying, are these the same neighborhoods we've talked about before? Or are these new neighborhoods that are coming?
They're mostly the ones we've talked about.
Okay.
So, and I will, Chief, I'd like to talk to you after just for a second if I could. And I've got some times of the day when they're come through speeding most, so.
Do we have data on if those speed signs work or not? I mean, I feel like they work for me. Every time it starts giving me that frowny face, I slow down.
You're talking the radar,
Yeah, radar.
feedback signs?
Yeah.
Yeah, the data that we're pulling off them shows that, yeah, they do.
So I would
They
say
do help.
in some of these areas, we probably ought to try to invest a little more in some of those too. Because those are some of the number one complaints I'm starting to get all the time.
Yeah.
So, and I can understand if you have a family and you're in a residential area and people are speeding every day, it's like you're going to be concerned that your child could be in real danger. We really don't want any child to get hit.
No.
So if there's anything we can do to help that, I think we need to.
Currently, we do not have anything in as far as the feedback signs in the upcoming budget. So if that's a priority, then that you want to get on this year, we probably need to discuss funding.
Yeah, I think we ought to look at that. At least one or two each year until we cover the areas that are giving us problems.
It seems successful to me, but that's just all anecdotal.
I know I'm the same way. I'm driving, it doesn't have to be in Midvale or anywhere else. If there's one of those signs and all of a sudden it says it's a 30 mile an hour or 40 mile an hour and I'm going 50, then I hit the brakes and slow down. And a lot of times you just drive, you don't watch your speedometer all the time. You just drive to whatever feels comfortable and what the traffic's doing around you. And so, but then all of a sudden you're saying, you're told, yeah, you're going way over the speed limit, then most people will slow down.
Agreed.
That's all tonight.
Thank you. And Councilmember Dustin Gettle, did you have a comment?
I just love the smirk that Chief Thomas has when Councilmember Glover is saying, I don't watch how fast I'm going.
Well, I mean, it's been several years ago, but I got a speeding ticket on my own street.
That'd be so great if he gave the chief in time of day and area. He's the guy that gets pulled
I give
over.
you the time of day I go too fast.
You know what that truck looks like.
So did
out
you
there.
tell the people that you're the
There's
problem?
nothing else like it.
It's not in my street.
Just have a patrol follow him home tonight.
I'm glad you got a laugh out of it.
Councilmember Dustin Gettle.
Thanks, Mayor. I just want to say for the record that I travel the speed limit at all times. Thank you. I wanted to thank Glenn for two things. Number one, for the email that you sent explaining in greater detail the rain sensor issue that we have. And my question was, you mentioned that we can disseminate some of that information, but did you not? Okay, wait, you're giving me a look. I thought you said that we could let the person know who asked the question.
absolutely.
Okay. So is there anything that you don't want us to share with him? Okay. Okay, or them. I won't.
Yeah, no. That was intended for you to be able to.
Okay. Good. Okay, cool. Thank you for that. And also for the, we had some issues, and Matt, you might speak of this in your report, just some after hours, Friday phone call issues. So thank you for taking care of that, and Matt as well I think you actually went out and looked at the issue that our resident was talking about. So thank you, and hopefully we can get those after hour issues handled. One other thing I just wanted to mention, it was interesting, Chief Larson mentioned, I don't know if any of us realized it, that it is our first time as an entire council together. I feel like, that's something, it's interesting that we didn't know that, but also we've been together in some form or another. So it's not like this is the first time seeing each other in 12 months, but it's interesting as well as we're moving into a new phase of the pandemic. You see a lot of faces tonight, actual faces, and you see some not faces. And what I want to stress to folks out there is that we have entered a new era of this pandemic. And I think it's time for us as citizens of the United States to be kinder to each other, whether you wear a mask or whether you don't wear a mask. And the CDC guidelines have indicated that not wearing a mask is more acceptable in certain situations. So hopefully the animosity that we've seen over the past year of masked people versus unmasked people will wane, if not go away entirely. It is kind of a new frontier out there right now because you see people wearing masks, and I went to Costco this weekend and I debated whether I was going to wear a mask because they've dropped the mask mandate. And so just because you see someone wearing a mask and you're not wearing a mask, you should respect that person as they should you now if you're not wearing a mask. And I'm hoping that we in City Hall, because we as elected officials have responsibilities to the employees of Midvale City as well, and we have responsibilities to residents of Midvale City. And I would like to see, that goodwill that I would like to see in the community also here at City Hall as well. So I hope that we can be kind to each other inside City Hall and outside of City Hall. And that's all I have for tonight, Mayor.
Thank you very much. My remarks tonight, I just want to report on one of the things I want to talk about is I had a senior citizen write me a letter. That doesn't happen very often, first of all, but the senior citizen delineated many of the problems and the costs of living in the abode that she has selected. And so I had many different ideas. So I went over next door to the senior center, and I sat down with Lorianne, the manager there, and we talked about the letter and all of its points. And I said, Lori, can you help me help this person? And she said, I've made some notes from what you've said. Give me a few minutes. And I said, that's fine. I'm going home for lunch. I got home, and not 5 minutes later, she was on the phone. Okay, I'm ready. So I had to drop my lunch, and I came back down, picked her up, and we went over to visit this citizen face to face and discuss about what the situations are that she lives with and the costs and everything. I want to tell you, this senior citizen center next door to us is a great service to our senior citizens. Food was an issue. We talked to this lady about coming over here at lunch with some of the other people that live near her. It's like $4 if you can afford it. It's free if you can't. So just come and get a good meal. It's all cooked on site. It's delicious. Certainly a compliment goes to that crew that prepares that food, and to all citizens who eat there. We're seeing larger and larger numbers of our senior folk come and socialize with others and have a good meal in the middle of the day. So I recommend that for our senior citizens. I'm going to be on vacation from the 3rd through the 22nd of June. Council member Bryant Brown is going to be the mayor pro tem during that period, and I've given him a list of, I don't know, 10 meetings to attend. Some will be easy to get to, some won't. Councilmember Brown, I invite you to work with Matt on staff or other council members to make sure we're represented at the ones you're unable due to work or whatever attend, and make sure our interests are protected there and explained there.
Yep, that'd be fine.
Okay, very good. That concludes my remarks. So we'll now go to the city manager report.
Thank you. I have two items this evening that I wanted to cover with you. The first one I'll do from here, and then I'll go up there for the second item, so it's easier to manipulate. The first item is just after last Thursday, the CDC had issued their direction that those people who are vaccinated would no longer have to wear masks. We contemplated what the policy should be for the city, because up to that point, we still officially had the policy, and actually, as of tonight, we still have the policy that in the common areas of the city, that staff are supposed to be wearing masks. As you can see, though, we're not universally enforcing that tonight, and part of that is I've already had some discussions and have not issued the official sort of direction. But I wanted, before I did that, I wanted to inform you. One is that we would just basically say there will no longer be a mask requirement in the common areas of City Hall. But that we would continue to recommend those people who have not been vaccinated, both of the public and staff, would wear masks. Recommend. We'll put that signage up in City Hall and go with that guidance. In addition to that, though, we are also asking staff. Well, we are reminding staff that COVID is still a pandemic, that people are still getting sick, going to the hospital, and still people are losing their lives from this. And so I'm asking everyone to be both cautious and courteous as we move forward, or showing goodwill, as you were saying, and that they remember that some staff members are still more susceptible to COVID than others, and that they behave accordingly as they go into people's offices and cubicles, and remember to sort of take into mind what the potential unique circumstances of each individual is. So we're going to go in that direction, and I just wanted to inform you of that before I issue the email that informs staff of that. But the general takeaway is we'll no longer be requiring masks. Does anyone have any questions, comments, or concerns about that?
Just a comment, Matt. I know that, it's very uncharted territory. Most of us weren't alive during the last pandemic of 1918. But, some unique challenges I'm sure will arise from this. And, I'm sure you're up to the task of handling those. If you could just let us as the council be aware of, any issues any trends of issues that pop up, because, our interest level in protecting residents and citizens is not less than it was because the numbers are going down. So we have, every interest in making sure that we've been a very safe city. I think so far we've done a lot of things preemptively, and I'd hate to see at the tail end of that things to spiral out of control. But I think.
And in that vein, two other things that I forgot to mention there in that email are, if there's a spike of COVID in the county, we would potentially be requiring everyone to go back to masks. And if there ends up being any transmission within the city staff, we could also, for a temporary basis, require masks again.
Have you updated a policy just for an obviously symptomatic employee, whether it's, just feverish or whatever employee?
Our policy's technically always been, if you're sick, stay home. If you're a manager and you have an employee who's sick, send them home. We are reiterating that, and that'll be something that we really push with the absence of masks.
Okay.
I'm good with it. I just always want to reiterate that if you can, get the vaccination. I know there's always skeptics about it, and I always preach about it. I feel comfortable not wearing a mask a lot of times because of it, and it helps everyone around. But that's just my 2 cents.
And it's comforting at this point. Everyone who is physically able to get a vaccine in the state of Utah has been offered the opportunity to do so. Not that, you may still feel like, hey, I don't want to get someone sick that I know and love who doesn't want to get the vaccine. But, at some point, big brother, big sister can only do so much for that population. And if we are ruled by kindness, I think we'll be well on our way.
You're here. All right, thank you. Will you bring up that presentation? On a semi-regular basis, we go through and look at the committees that we are all members of. We don't always make very significant changes, but we do review them. One of the big changes that we were going to make this year on our list of committees is officially changing which boards Kane is represented on there, and now swap me out for him. And so I've provided you with a list of the committees that we have membership on, as well as the proposed changes for that. I wanted to walk through it really quickly. What I was hoping we could do is walk through, see if we need to make any changes. If the proposed changes that we have on there are sufficient for you, then I would come back next week and just have this on the consent agenda for you to approve this list by resolution. So I'll go through, this first page has the full list of all of the committees that we're a part of, but I'll go through a little bit more specifically here. So the first one is UIA. I've been on the Utah Infrastructure Agency Board for a year now. We would look to move I should also say on that sheet where I have the red brackets, that is who was in that position previously. And who we have on there in black letters is who we're recommending for that. So the UIA board is essentially the funding agency for a lot of the infrastructure work that goes on with regards to Utopia. UIA and Utopia are very closely connected. Historically, the assistant city manager has been on UIA and the city manager has been the representative on Utopia, so we'd look at making that change. Unified Fire, the mayor is the main representative on there, but that we would move me as sort of that third representative, keeping, sorry, I'm gonna make one adjustment on here, hopefully, there we go. And then, like I said before, we'd, unless I indicate that there's change on there, we'd just keep this current membership. So Paul would be the alternate on there. And then the same thing as we get to the Unified Fire Service Board. Before I go to the next page, does anyone have any issues with anything on here? Next one, Unified Police Board. Again, just sort of putting me on as staff representation for that group. Keeping the mayor in the positions that he's on UPD Citizen Advisory Board. We have the Midvale City Audit Committee, which we don't look at changing anything there. So Paul, Heidi, and Jared, right? That's the same. Then as we look at the Community Council, keeping it as Dustin as a representative there with the mayor. And then Kyle and I will swap out who attends as far as staff. Any questions on this? Next one is Midvale Arts Council. I'll be keeping Bryant as the liaison there. Harvest Days, last year Bryant was the one on there. Heidi had offered last meeting to be the representative, so we've made that change. South Valley Reclamation, we have Glenn and Keith on that. And then Jordan Water Conservation District. Our board member is actually the person who represents us as well as a few other districts is Reed Gibby. And so as far as Glenn, Keith, and Alan, those are sort of staff representations on there. So there's nothing we really would look at changing there. Does anyone have any questions, comments, or concerns on this one?
I just want to say Bryant did a great job last year on the Harvest Days Committee.
It was the best Harvest Days we've ever done.
Not a single complaint.
Yeah, not zero.
I'll tell you what, 2020 will always be remembered. Next one, Transjordan Landfill. This is actually one where at the request of Transjordan, they've asked that Kane stay on through the end of this year. You know, Kane has a little bit of experience with regards to this, and it's a way to keep us in touch with them. So we think that's a fantastic idea. So we wouldn't be looking at making any changes there.
Well, they're making some important decisions on the new facility just south of this office.
Right.
And he would be part of that and continue the integral knowledge that he had developed over the years.
Is that the
Absolutely.
transfer station you're talking about? That's going to be on Sandy,
Yeah.
Midvale border?
Yep.
Does it create, and totally fine with him remaining on, does it create any sort of legal responsibility for us as someone who's no longer employed by us, who could, you know, whatever, like say he's in a car accident on the way to the Transjordan landfill meeting? Does that create any sort of issues for us since he's not an employee of ours, but he's doing work on our behalf? Or is he getting paid some amount of money through the end of the year?
You know, he's a volunteer.
Okay.
And I'll be honest, we had not sort of thought of what happens if he gets into a car accident on the way out there.
God forbid, obviously.
God forbid.
But
Yeah.
I wonder about
That sounds like an attorney today.
I did go to law school.
We will look into seeing how much of an issue that is, but we
Okay.
had not really contemplated that. We sort of were valuing, as the mayor said, sort of that history and background and experience. And
He's obviously.
Are they
the
doing
best
Zoom? Are they still
person.
doing virtual?
I think they're back in person in that one.
Okay, because that would have made that a lot easier.
I mean, yes, they're doing Zoom, and unless he gets carpal tunnel, he'll be okay. But no, I think they are back in person. Historic Society is Dustin. Community Building Community is Mayor Hale. Mosquito Abatement continues to be Councilman Glover. Any questions, comments, concerns on this one? Okay. We would move so that for VEC, I would take Kane's place. I would take it on the Utah League of Cities or Utah League of Cities and Towns Legislative Policy Committee. We'd keep the mayor and Quinn on there as well. This is one, I'll be honest, it's on our list. Have you been meeting with the Association of Government Councils?
All the time.
Okay. Very good.
No, I
Very-
think, I
very
think
good.
I'm actually on that one
Are you?
currently. And I do as I can. They have meetings that are very inconvenient. They tend to be either Tuesdays or Thursdays at 10 a.m. So, I get the agendas and they're, yeah. It's actually, if we could get someone who, those just tend to be terrible times for me at that specific point of any morning. So if anyone else is able to, I think it's beneficial to have someone on there because they typically have guest speakers who come in who's like Mayor Jenny Wilson or, big names that, we really could let them know, issues that we have specific to Midvale.
So, in that vein, is there anyone that has availability at that time?
That's hard for me, but regardless of who takes it, I just would like my name to stay on it though.
Okay.
So,
Yeah,
It's good.
How often are the meetings?
Monthly, once a month. And they're doing hybrid now. You can go in. Their meetings typically are in Murray City Hall. They have lunch. It's one I wish that I could participate more because it really is. And most of the people on it are other council members of different cities throughout Salt Lake County and mayors. So it's a good one. I just have had difficulty getting to their 10 a.m. meetings.
That brings up another one I don't see on here is the Air Quality Council.
I didn't see that one on here either.
Okay. Well, and if there's any others that we need to say, I mean, is that one that we have an appointment to?
We get invitations to their regular meetings. And Dustin has been, as far as I know, our rep on that.
Shelley has sent me a few invitations. So yeah, I haven't gone to, all 12 of them, but when she sends me an invitation, which has only been twice, I think, maybe 3 times. But yeah, I haven't been doing it monthly or anything.
That's one we could have representation on that I don't see on this list.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
for
stick with you on that one?
Well, I assumed that, I was like the backup. So, very infrequently I would get an email from Shelley saying the mayor can't attend this meeting. Can you?
Sorry, but keep you on as that, in that position? Sorry, as the backup? We have backups listed
Yeah.
on here.
Okay. Yeah. No, I'm absolutely fine with that.
Okay, and then were you, Councilman or Councilmember Robinson, were you going to be okay
Yeah, I can do that.
jumping onto that one? Okay. Okay, very good, thank you. Wasatch Front Regional Council, Conference of Mayors, Rotary Club, keeping that with the mayor. Quinn, you're on the Shelter of the Homeless Board. Is everyone good with that? Any interest in making any changes on that?
Have you, speaking of homes, oh, I see mine over here. Never mind.
Okay. Boys and Girls Club, Dustin and Mayor Hale. Planning Commission, Dustin. Jordan River Commission, Dustin. This one will make a change before we come back with the official resolution to do this, in that I'll be removing myself as the alternate. I haven't actually, this is one where I've also not really been acting as the alternate on there, but with Jana leaving, we'll come up with a new alternate person on there. And then Animal Services, putting Kyle on there instead of Kane. Issues on this page?
If you could, Matt, just maybe stick to someone in the planning department, because I think the Jordan River Commission typically is very planning intensive.
Okay. That makes sense. On all of these, it's the mayor, road home coordinating committee, state homeless coordinating committee, Salt Lake County Arts Application Committee, and the Utah Government Trust Board. Does everyone have any questions, comments, concerns there?
what's this arts application? Is that ZAP or like, what do you?
It it's the CDBG, I thought. Is that what that's supposed to be?
I wonder if this is like one of those holdover committees that used to exist, but maybe doesn't anymore.
We should just find out, because if we could, maybe the council or whatever could slightly be involved, because we put in for grants and stuff. I don't know what this entails. So it'd be good to know what that entails, not taking away from the mayor, but if we could at least link up and see how we can best maximize the city's arts, we should.
The one I thought it was, it's an annual board where the county brings mayors of smaller cities together to take applications from social agencies for community development block grants. That probably is either got to be another list there.
Yep.
Renamed.
I'll add that one on there because that was the one that we had Stacy Phillips was on this last year. So we'll look at getting that added on here. Are there any other committees that any of you are a part of representing the city on that is not included on this list?
There's a name change for the State Homeless Coordinating Committee. Do you recall what it is, Quinn?
Say that one more time.
The State Homeless Coordinating Committee's got it's got one word less in it now.
That's the one.
I'll look at that.
Niederhauser's.
And get it to me.
But, so we'll get that name changed on there, but we would still have the mayor as the rep on that one. Is that where people feel would make sense to continue that?
Yeah, I think I have to be.
Okay.
The mayor has to be on that committee.
That's right. Okay, so
It's called the the Utah Homelessness Council. That's the new name.
okay. So before the next meeting, then we'll go through and I'll add Heidi to the Association of Government Councils.
Will you also put me on the community council as well? Sorry, I just realized that. It
Yes,
shows,
are you saying instead of?
yeah, Dustin stepped down.
Oh, yeah,
Last
I
time.
took planning and she took community council.
Okay,
Thank you.
yep. All right, so we'll put you on community council. Let me try that again. Community council. We'll add you to the Association of Government Councils, Heidi, and then we'll add the air quality meeting and make sure that it's clear that you're the backup, and then of course, Mayor, that you're the primary representative on that one. We will look at getting someone from community development, preferably a planner, on for the Jordan River Commission. We will figure out what the Salt Lake Arts Application Committee is, and then we'll send that out so we understand what that is before the next meeting. And then we will change the title on the Utah Homeless Coordinating Committee, and we will add the block grant review committee from the county on there. And with those changes, we'll come back and unless something jumps up out of any of these things that you want to discuss further, I'll just put that on the consent agenda for approval next time. Is everyone cool with that? Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Okay, we'll flip over now to our department reports and begin with community development and RDA report. Nate Rockwood, please.
Hi, Mayor and Council. Just want to do a quick update on 3 different items. I don't have a presentation, but just a follow-up on the item last week or 2 weeks ago that I brought to council on the Fort Union Interlocal Agreement and the term sheet. In working with the county initially, we put together a timeline that the county had indicated was what they anticipated. As they kind of went through that process, they came back with an alternate timeline with a few more steps that they needed to take in terms of public noticing for their end of that. And so I just wanted to make the council aware that all of the terms on the term sheet and the interlocal agreement are in place. The timeline will just be pushed a little bit. They needed to get their council to approve noticing and then publish noticing, do a public hearing. So what that all did is all of those agreements had a closing date of May 30th, when the agreements were going to kick into place or terminate. But within that agreement, there was the clause unless mutually extended by in writing by authorized representatives of each party. So with that new timeline, which has been pushed back just 2 weeks, so that they can accommodate the county's noticing requirements. The developer who was closing with the other developer on the property have allowed for that to happen, and so they've adjusted their closing date. And so I just wanted to make you aware of that. None of the terms of the agreement have changed, just that 2-week difference in the timeline. So the partnering developer has given basically a day after the signatures come in from the county council on that interlocal agreement. That all works. We'll keep the council updated on if the county council decides to change the dates in that actual agreement. We want the two agreements to match up, so we would come back on June 1st with an agreement so that they all line up, and we'll see where that goes. That's all on track. The developer is still going through the process of getting all those requirements that are in the term sheet, and so we feel that's on track at this point. Another thing I wanted to inform council of is we've been going through a Cdbg grant process presented to the committee a couple of weeks ago, and we've gotten award notices for both the projects that we applied for, which one is making improvements to the Jordan River Parkway for just over $43,000. And then the other one is to make improvements to the old museum on Main Street to equip it to be the art house project that we're working on. So just under $40,000 for that. So we're excited to get those two grants, and we'll start rolling on those projects here as the July 1st rolls around. The other item that I have is just this is more of a question for council from the planning department on how we want to proceed. So with the Homes development, we've been going through a process of amending all those plats, and we're doing it basically building by building. With that, once the planning commission approves that, then there's 45 days for the city council to take an action on that. The planning commission has approved 14 plats. And so as you may remember, we've done a couple of these. You have to do them all individually, and they just take time to work through that procedure. So we just want to see how you would want to handle that if you really want us to come back in a council meeting with 14 plats and go through that process of just doing one after the other, which could take kind of a lot of time, and we'll probably all go crazy by the end of it. Or if you want that to be broken up between a couple of meetings, or even if you want to hold a special meeting to try to do that. So 45 days from when the planning commission has approved it would be July 10th. So right now we've got the June 1st, June 15th, and the July 6th meeting that we could split those up, or split those up in maybe 2 meetings, or try to do them all at once, which would probably make for a long meeting.
Wait, this is Midvale Mills, is that what you said?
No, this is the Homes. So each building that they have in that development, they have as a separate individual plat. So it has to go through that process 14 times, just over and over.
Okay, I mean, I wouldn't want to slow down development just to, like, do they need us to do them all at once or can we split it up?
No, but doing it by the time limit that they have is fine. That works with them. It's just how much do you want to do in one day? If you want to do it all together, just
Can you hire an auctioneer that talks real fast?
that would be the way to do it. So
Split them up.
Yeah.
split them up between a couple of meetings or between all 3 meetings. How do you want to do it?
2 meetings is fine.
2 meetings.
7
Okay.
each time or
Okay.
whatever.
Perfect.
Just talk, whoever's doing it, talk real fast.
Okay. All right. Those are my updates. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer anything.
Thank you, Nate.
Thanks.
Our next item on the agenda is the consent agenda to consider the minutes of April 15th and May 4th, 2021.
Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any questions or comments on the motion? Hearing none. Rory, would you ask the question on the vote?
Yes, Councilmember Sperry,
Aye.
Glover,
Aye.
Robinson,
Aye.
Brown,
Yes.
and Gettle.
Yes.
Thank you. We'll now move to action items. We have 2. The first one is to consider a 6-lot final subdivision plan located at 7039 to 7045 South 300 East. Jason Binks, our senior planner, will take us through this and so.
Okay. All right, this is Jason. It shouldn't take too long. This is a final subdivision. The applicant is Jacob Weber from Weber Engineering. And the city council did approve the preliminary plat on April 20th. And they've made all those updates to the condition, the final plat. And so this should be a short one. It's at 7039, 7045 South, 300 East. Let's see. Okay, here's the property, if you can see that on your screens. So what they're doing with this plat is just finalizing, taking 3 lots, subdividing it into 6, and then putting 3 twin homes on this. This is what the street view looks like, looking southeast. Those 2 homes right there have been removed. There was some vagrancy, and so those have been demoed. The 3 parcels now are behind a fence. Now, if we look on the other side of the street, there are similar type twin homes. These are 5 twin homes, so 10 residential units just immediately across the street. And here's the final plat. They've made all the notes. They've met all the conditions that you gave them on April 20th. Those are the 6 lots, a single story in the back, and then 2 stories right up front. I think everyone really liked the plans for this one, but the plat holds them to the design that they did submit. So if they change the design on this, then they'd have to come back with a new conditional use permit. So with that, short and sweet. So only one condition on this one, just get the signatures for the final Mylar. And staff is just recommending that you approve this final plat.
Is this the one that was slightly more modern looking?
It was. Let me, I've got some slides in the back, so that's what they look like.
Next time, can you just put like this one in the slide again so I can refresh my memory, you know, anytime they come back? Because I was like, is this a new one? And then I kind of had to do a rerun. So,
okay.
Thank you.
Any questions for Jason on this action item? I hear none, so I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'll make a motion. I move that we approve the 6-lot final subdivision plat of 7039 to 7045 South 300 East with the following conditions of approval. 1, the applicant shall obtain all required signatures on the final Mylar.
Second.
We have the motion and a second. Any questions or comments on the motion before we proceed to the vote? Hearing none. Rory, would you ask the questions?
Yes, Councilmember Glover,
Aye.
Robinson,
Aye.
Brown,
Yes.
Gettle,
Yes.
and Sperry.
Okay, approved. The second action item is to consider resolution number 2021 R18, authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Quicksilver Concrete Incorporated for the 2021 Neighborhood ADA Ramp Upgrade Project. Keith, where are we on that?
We are ready to rock and roll.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, Mr. Dahl. Appreciate the fact that I had the opportunity to be here tonight, live in person. It's kind of nice, actually. In continuing effort to upgrade our sidewalk ramps to meet current ADA standards, we applied for and received some Cdbg funds in the amount of $210,000. We worked with an engineering firm, selected 8 intersections for a total of 26 ramps to do. We put the projects out to bid, had a bid opening last Tuesday, a week ago today. Received 2 bids from 2 very qualified contractors, Miller Paving and Quicksilver Concrete. Quicksilver Concrete was the qualified low bidder. Their bid was at $242,528.50. Just as a note, Quicksilver Concrete currently has our concrete replacement contract and has been doing the work in the city for the past several years. And so we know them and work well with them, and all the confidence in the world that they will do us a great job. As some of you may have guessed, I am looking to suspend the rules tonight.
I knew it.
In order to move this project along and to try to meet the county's requirement of spending this money as quickly as possible, would like, again, you to suspend the rules so you could take action on this item tonight, and then we can get the contractor under contract and moving as quickly as possible. Their bid of $242,000 some odd will be covered by the Cdbg funds. The balance will be covered by pavement management funds. In previous years, we have used pavement management funds to fill the gap typically that exists between the project cost and our Cdbg funds. There's a motion I've prepared for this. If there's any questions you've got for me or anything I can answer.
I have a quick question. First, I'd like to say thank you for letting me give you a hard time about the tie
Oh,
and
no
suspending the rules, but it does seem to be like clockwork. And I also am a big fan of pushing these forward, so I'm fine with the suspending of the rules. My only question is the bids are very far apart in pricing, it seems like. So is there a potential, I know we keep hearing always about like there's low inventory or low stock and stuff. Will this price escalate, or do they have like a percentage they can go up? Because, you know, when there's like an $80,000 difference or so, I mean,
Right.
that's makes me nervous.
We actually talked to the contractor. We went through his numbers, made sure that the arithmetic was right to begin with, talked to the contractor. He's confident. That's the number he came up with. There's a lot of factors. Everybody's really busy.
Yeah.
And this is just speculation, conjecture on my part. Miller Paving may be, you know, hey, if we're going to do this job, we're going to, you know, make some money on it. We've got enough work going on. You know, again, just hard to say, but we have talked with Quicksilver, and they're confident that he's maybe a little disappointed he left so much money on the table, but obviously that's why it's,
Well, yeah,
closed bid and you put out your best numbers, and
That's why you have a bidding process.
that's right.
But if they do come in and the work is quality, it doesn't necessarily speak great to how Miller views us, in my opinion. Like to go like $85,000 off of something that's just ramps and concrete. It speaks good to Quicksilver if that's what they can do, in my opinion. And
Right.
and we'll
And
see
it
how
might
it
be that
goes.
Quicksilver knows this. Like I said, they've worked with us for several years in the past. We know them, they know our staff. And maybe it's just some expectations they already, there's maybe not enough. There's no, what's the word I'm looking for? No questions or no mystery in what we're about and what we do.
Got it. Cool.
Any other questions for Keith on this action item? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move that we suspend the rules and approve resolution number 2021-R-18, authorizing the mayor to sign the agreement with Quicksilver Concrete, Inc. for the 2021 Neighborhood ADA Ramp Upgrade Project.
Second.
We have a motion and 2 seconds. Any questions or comments on the motion? Hearing none. Rory, would you ask the question?
Yes, Councilmember Robinson,
Aye.
Brown,
Yes.
Gettle,
Yes.
Sperry,
Aye.
and Glover.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ahead. Thank you, Keith. We have a discussion item next on the agenda to discuss parental leave and caregiver leave policies. And we invite Rory Andreessen, who's somewhere in the world where she has internet connection, to help us understand this. Go ahead, Rory.
I wish that I was somewhere exciting in the world, but I'm not. I'm home. And I don't know if you want to see my Seattle's cowboy hat or my hat, baseball hat. I guess they're not cowboy hats, huh? A baseball hat or not. So I was hoping to maybe put up something on the screen. No, I don't know if you got my email or not.
I kind of want to see your hat.
So the Seattle Cowboys baseball
you
team.
go.
So now
Here
you
you
have
go.
like,
My Seattle hat. I have my other arm done. So
it's the football team.
it's not the yes, it's a football team. That's it. Football, not baseball, not Cowboys, nothing. It's football. Hey, I've had surgery. All right, you guys. This is just scary looking. So that's okay. You'll get to look at me. So I went back and I created the parental leave and the caregiver leave as per our discussions. Now I know you had talked about 6 weeks and we were talking about 4 weeks. I went with 4 weeks because I had a discussion with one of the managers that said, Public Works, they probably have some people that could cover, but say, in some of the other areas where they're one deep, it might be really hard for them to cover for 4 weeks. So, look, they did it. Okay. Noah, you're the best. Go to the first one, if you would. Okay, so the parental leave currently had 2 weeks, runs concurrently with FMLA and short-term disability and is on a 12-month rolling period. That will continue, except that it will be available for full-time employees who have been employed for the city for at least 3 months. So they can't just come on and the next week go on leave. So they have to be employed for 3 months, and they have a maximum of 4 weeks to use in a 12-month rolling period. So like Councilmember Brown was saying, I really liked what he said about, I could stay, or his wife could stay home, then he could stay home or go what he needed to do to go to doctor's appointments or something like that and use that time as they needed it throughout the year. I thought that was really helpful. The new policy includes running concurrently with FMLA and or short-term disability, depending on whether they need that or not. And in that respect, it would be their position would be protected. As down here, it shows the job protection during leave. Again, it's on a 12-month rolling period. And that is also available to those people that are on probationary in their probationary period. And the probationary period would be extended by the amount of time that they take during this parental leave. So they can take it, but then that probationary time would be extended. The one question that I have for all of you is, one thing that we could do is provide incentives to the employees that are covering for those employees that are off, maybe in some kind of an award or a gift card or something to that effect, up to a maximum amount. I had in there maybe some awards up to a total maximum of $400 a year for anything that is superior work that they've done, something that saved the city money, or these incentives such as something like this, where they've really stepped up and got in there and helped. So that's something to consider. Noel, will you go to the next page? So the caregiver leave is exactly the same, except that it is, and it's again for FMLA type. It's actually not for the birth and adoption of the foster care. I have that wrong. It is for, as you can see in your manual that, or in your packet, that it is for a serious health condition of an immediate family. So sorry, I threw that together really quick, but everything else is the same, except that it's for a serious health condition of a family. And that's also an FMLA criteria that would have to be met. And again, it would run under the same type of situation where it would be protected. Questions, comments? Thanks,
Rory,
Noah.
as you know, I've been a big advocate of both of these policies for several years now. So I'm very happy to see the parental leave. You know, my initial thought was 6 weeks. We compromised on 2. So to see it ticking up towards 6, which I still think is the appropriate amount of time that we should be affording our new parents, mothers, fathers, adopted,
Sure,
biological. But so any incremental increase is great. I do like the job protection as well. That, refresh my memory, that's new for both policies, correct?
that, I believe that is new, yes. I don't think we had it as a job protection before.
Okay, and that, yeah, that was just maybe an oversight before.
Yeah,
but
I think it was.
yeah, obviously you
Because
should.
it is an FMLA.
When you come
Yeah,
back.
yeah, sorry.
So that's
Yes.
you know, I would like to hear what other council members say about the awarding financial incentives. I mean, for stepping up, you know, I don't know how I feel about that, to be honest.
Right.
It's not, I mean, obviously it's nice. It's a nice sentiment, but so is, you know, just stepping up and doing something while you're
Yeah,
coworker.
stepping up and helping your coworkers without it is, I think, more important.
Yeah.
My big concern would be the chance of abuse of that.
If you have one person who is constantly volunteering to
That's a good point. That is a good point. Yes.
make an extra $3,000 a year.
Well, they don't get 400, but you know.
It's capped at 400 per year.
Yeah, it would be capped at 400.
I'm not in favor of it.
That's fine. That was
Yeah.
just a thought.
I hate to sound like, you know, the Grinch, but
No,
it
no,
just,
that's okay. We can
It
definitely
incentivizes-
take that one out.
it incentivizes the wrong sentiment, I believe.
Sure, sure.
My only thought on it is not for the caregiver leave, but for the parental. I just know right now there's a lot of competition for talent,
Yes.
and I would hate for someone to start an interview process. You know, sometimes from interview to hire can take a month or two, right? And you know, they're like 4 months out, and then they get hired, and they don't start until they're inside the 3 months, or they're outside the 3 months, and their wife
Oh,
has
gotcha.
a kid a month early, right?
Sure.
So they think that they're well covered.
We can take
I
that
understand,
out.
like the maybe some kind of timeline makes sense. I don't know if I agree with 3 months, just because, you know, like I said, what if there was an emergency, and that's when they need it more, right? All of a sudden the kid's born 2 months early, and the wife's in the hospital. So I don't know what you guys think of that, like 30 days, or something.
I would say, my personal opinion is that if our benefits start on day one for health benefits, then this should start then too. The studies indicate from an HR perspective that an employee who takes either one of those types of leave is typically more loyal to that employer for offering them that benefit. So I don't see a whole lot of people getting hired
Okay.
and using that benefit and then saying, see,
And
you
leaving.
I mean, it could
We can-
happen, but
We
and
can
if it
definitely
does,
do that.
yeah, if it does, and we see that it's
Then we
being
can change it.
used in some way, we can change it.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it stinks because a new employee, if it's like a month in, they're still training. They're not even
Right.
capable, right?
Right.
So I get it, but I would hate to be that company or that, the entity where, like I said, there's, we hire someone, she doesn't think she's gonna have a kid for 4 months, and 10 days later she's like in the hospital or something, and then we're like, and we're not giving you any of these benefits. It just feels weird.
Right. Right.
And of course, the parental leave, unless someone or their spouse was 6 months pregnant at the time, they wouldn't be able to use that benefit right away anyway.
We did actually have one employee that started work and 2 weeks later, his wife had a baby. So it has happened. But the benefits do start the first of the following month. So if they start on the 30th, of course, their benefits are going to start on the 1st. But if they start on the 15th, the benefits don't start till the 1st of the next month. So that does give a little bit of time, depending on when they come on board.
And I think we should keep it as that. If that's our policy, I'd forgotten that it starts on the 1st of the
Yeah, it's the 1st of the month. Yeah.
If that's what it is for everything else, then I think
It
that's
is.
what it should be for parental
Okay.
and caregiver leave.
Okay, perfect. Okay, I'll change that.
So
Any
Right-
questions? Yep.
right now, as it's written in here, it currently would allow if someone had they could take both a parental leave and caregiver leave in the same year, right?
There's no restriction.
And that was one thing I talked to some of you about, is that we do have, I know we talked about not providing maybe additional incentive for someone covering for folks, but the reality is that we've had some people leave, and I know that this is not the same as having someone leave and then have to train someone new. There's some differences there, but it has proven how lean our organization is in a lot of areas. And we have, particularly like right now, our planning staff they were swamped, and now we're down an employee, and now they're sort of crushed. And so, even ticking up towards 6 weeks, I hear what you're saying, but that gives me a lot of pause as we look to what the potential impacts are on the organization over the long term, including we might be helping with the satisfaction of the person who gets the leave, but we will be, and I think we are currently pushing the limits on those that are still around. Now, I want to continue to support this. I think you guys are doing, these two things are great initiatives, but I would like to clarify that you get one or the other in a given year.
I think I have a couple of thoughts on that. Hypothetically, if we had both at the same time, and we had an employee that goal was, and if it was at 6 weeks each, was their goal was to use both, and they use it for any reason other than its stated purpose, we would not want them as employees here, right? So if for some reason someone had a baby and they took their 6 weeks, and then 6 months later that baby or the mother had a life-threatening injury, right? That stinks for the city, other people to cover for them, but I don't necessarily find that a bad thing. If we find out, like, I would like the policy to be like, no room for, if you're found to abuse this, you're fired, because I want this to be for the purposes stated, right? Like, for parental leave, for health, for the healthcare, right? If they are doing what Glenn suggested, where they might disappear into the woods, we don't want them as employees, I don't think, because you're either here to work and be a part of the city, or you're not. This is for like this isn't for fun. This is for like extreme stressful moments of your life. Like you're trying to bring a new baby into the world. Like no matter how great that is, new parents can admit that even if though it's great, you're like sleeping erratically and especially your first kid, you don't know what you're doing. And then the other one is like, if your mom has a heart attack and you're taking care of her, that's not fun, so I don't know. That's my opinion on kind of that.
I think
And just in that vein is we, at the same time, have people who are single parents taking care of kids that when someone takes one of these leaves, then they are spending more time at work and doing all that kind of stuff. We'll follow the policy that you want. I'm just saying, whatever position we take, there's a consequence that's affecting someone else. And that's up to you guys to make that judgment. I just want to make sure it's clear that I do think that if someone were to take advantage of both of these, plus whatever leave they have and all that kind of stuff, I think it's a very worthwhile thing that you guys are pursuing. I just think it could have a detrimental effect on the organization. I think we're talking about something that would happen, hardly ever, but.
Well, here's the thing too. I mean, we can't legislate how someone acts. If they qualify for these policies, they qualify. So if they get 4 weeks for the birth of a child and they spend 4 weeks in a cabin in Quebec hunting bears, we may not think that's the greatest use of their parental time, but as long as they've documented, it's not just hey, tell your boss that you're having a baby and you get this money. There is some documentation that needs to be provided. And Councilmember Brown brought up a good point. If you have a child who then has some catastrophic illness, 4 weeks certainly isn't going to be enough. So, in that instance, I don't think we should penalize someone for having 2 qualifying events within the same calendar year. In the same respect, if you have a very healthy child in January and then, your parent or loved one is diagnosed with terminal cancer in September, I don't think we should penalize that person either and say, oh no, you've already used one or the other. If you use one, obviously, I don't know how the math works out on this, but I don't think you could use parental leave twice in the same calendar year. But
Well, maybe.
maybe if you worked hard enough, maybe. But yeah, I don't see any reason to prevent someone
be adopted
for using.
You have to adopt, yes.
You have to adopt.
Yeah.
We can make it less.
Yeah. So yeah, you get one per year, but you could use both if you have a qualifying event for both policies. It's the same. It's not like you can use your dental insurance or your health insurance, one or the other. You got to pick one. You can't use them both. They're separate benefits for separate reasons and separate sensibilities about them.
I trust Matt on this overall. So I would either want it to be I don't necessarily agree that we just trust them and move on for what it could do to the departments, right? It's 4 or 6 weeks. So I either think it needs to be very clear in policy that if you're abusing this, you're not employed here anymore, or we do just one, because I do think if people think it's, you just have to have this bare minimum application that there will be some people that take advantage of it, especially the caregiver side. The pregnancy one is a little bit easier, right, to prove, right? Like there's a baby, right? That someone could be like, my mom had a heart attack and not even be, they might not even really be the primary caregiver, right? They might just use it as an excuse. And that's why if we're going to have it, I would like some teeth in there. So people know we want to support them for those purposes. And in return, they have some loyalty back and only use it for those purposes. If not, our relationship isn't maybe meant to be.
Matt, is your question more so I know your question is more the financial aspect of it. Do you want clarification of whether we want to provide incentives or not? Because I'm thinking about it. The other option would be if you had a very strapped department, you would offer overtime, which would then cost more. to the city to provide, 20 to 40 to 60 hours of overtime than it would be to say, here's your $200 gift card to Smith's.
Yeah, I think I mean, there's a couple different things here. It's just, again, we're talking about something that is less likely to happen, that someone would take both of these. We hope that they wouldn't have a need to use both of these different benefits. If they were to do that, I'm just saying there is a significant burden that is going to be put on folks, both hourly and salary, in order to cover while the people taking advantage of this benefit are out. I think we can say if someone were to take one or the other, we can sort of manage that time frame. But with both of them being utilized, that is a significant burden. And I do think that providing some sort of perk, and whether it's financial or we need to come up with something else for those that are stepping up in those cases, I think there is something that would be warranted in that. Again, in that instance where most of our divisions are pretty lean, and losing a person for 8 to plus vacation, 8 or more weeks would be a significant hit on that group.
And would that be something that you would need to specifically write into the policy, or is it something that you and other specific department managers could decide is the best idea at that point?
We could do it that way too.
I'd prefer it to be that way. I would hate to see a parental leave or a caregiver leave policy that also has, incentives written in for people who step up to help their fellow employee.
Well, to be clear, they're doing that, but they're also stepping up to help the organization too, not just that person.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's
it's the same,
lots of
if someone, God forbid, anyone in City Hall was diagnosed with, a horrible illness, to me, it's no different. You step up to help that person while they're out. And, if it's a department manager, that's more stressful than, someone a little further down on the organizational list. But, that's the risk you take in any organization. Anyone can get sick at any time.
And I do want Rory to put in the minutes that Dustin compares having a baby to having a serious illness.
As the childless person up here, I would say that's not my area of expertise. Having dogs is a pain, though. Get a dog caregiver.
Yeah, I agree with
There's this
that.
conversation now. Rory, do you have any? Do you need any other further guidance?
No, I think we've. Sorry, there's one dog. I think we've got everything. Thank you.
Okay, let's call for discussion item conversation. Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, Mayor.
Now that we have these cameras that zoom in, I realize how bald I am. And I don't know if I kind of want to go back to like pre-pandemic camera where it's like blurry and far away.
Pixelated.
Yeah, I don't know if I like this new.
I did have a little bit of. Is that what my hair looks like? It's a little bit.
You ready? All right, here we go. I want to welcome all of you to the Redevelopment Agency of Midvale City on this May 18th, 2021. First of all, let's have a roll call, and I'll ask Rory Andreessen, our city recorder, to perform that.
Okay, Board Member Sperry,
I'm here.
Brown,
Here.
Robinson,
Here.
Glover,
Here.
and Gettle.
Here.
Thank you. We enter the public comment section, so I'm inviting anyone in the audience who would like to comment. Seeing none. Laura Magnus, have you received any public comments on the?
No, Mayor, I don't have any public comments.
Very good, thank you. We'll now move to the consent agenda to consider approval of the minutes of May 4th, 2021.
Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve this consent agenda. Any questions or comments on the motion? Rory, would you ask the question?
Yes. Board Member Brown,
Yes.
Gettle,
Yes.
Glover,
Aye.
Sperry,
Aye.
and Robinson.
Aye.
Thank you. We'll move now to our action item. Let's see, I'm gonna flip the page over. We only have one. Consider resolution number 2021-08 RDA approving the Main Street Community Redevelopment Tax Increment Interlocal Cooperation Agreement between Central Utah Water Conservancy District and the Redevelopment Agency of Midvale City. We invite Cody Hill to participate now.
Thank you, Mayor Hale. Appreciate your time. This is the third to last taxing entity with which we're seeking to form an interlocal agreement, the Central Utah Water Conservancy District. They met on April 28th and they approved the interlocal agreement and entered into it. Now it's our opportunity to consider entering into the interlocal agreement. It is, their contribution would make up about 3% of the budget, or just under 500,000 under the primary budget, or about 860,000 under the contingency budget. The terms of the agreement are essentially the same from the previous other agreements that we've entered into. They're going to participate 60% of tax increment over 20 years with the obligation to trigger by 2024. So if there's any questions about it, I'm happy to field those.
Well, congratulations on getting us to the last one.
Almost there. We've got 2 left.
Oh, have 2 more. Okay. All right. Any questions for this action item?
What are the last 2? Jordan Valley
And Salt Lake County.
Okay. Other questions? Hearing none, entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move that we adopt resolution number 2021-08 RDA, which enters the agency into the interlocal cooperation agreement between Central Utah Water Conservancy District for the participation of property tax increment to support the Main Street Community Development Area.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, Rory, would you ask the question?
Board Member Glover,
Aye.
Sperry.
Aye.
Robinson,
Aye.
Brown,
Yes.
and Gettle.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Approved. Get those last 2 now. All right, we'll now have our discussion items. There are 2. First one is to discuss the Main Street CDA Upper Floor Affordable Housing Initiative. Patrick, I saw you sign in earlier. It's all yours.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. If you have any questions at any point, please feel free to stop me and I can do my best to answer them. Or if you want to wait until the end, that's fine too. So the Main Street Upper Floor Affordable Housing Initiative is it's intended to promote and incentivize the development of moderate income housing along Midvale's historic Main Street. It's also meant to help in the neighborhoods within the Main Street CDA. And the goal of the initiative is to encourage further residential growth in the Main Street area, especially in current commercial or retail properties along the Main Street that have vacant upper floor space. But the initiative also seeks to provide an incentive to develop upper floors for residential purposes on current single-story properties, as well as providing incentives to develop vacant lots with the goal of increasing the number of residential units along Main Street. And I'm sure you can appreciate that challenge that Utah is currently in at the moment with such a shortage of housing units at all levels of area median income. So that's one of the main purposes of this initiative, to stimulate the Main Street area as well. The Upper Floor Affordable Housing Initiative is supported by both the Midvale City Housing Plan and the Main Street Small Area Plan, with both plans seeking to address the need for increased housing in strategic and underserved parts of the community. The Main Street area is an important part of Midvale, as it's the historical core and ultimately it's the heart of our community. By bringing life back to the Main Street area, the rest of the city will benefit from a vibrant Main Street. And these are the goals. If anyone has any questions on those, I've attached a map just for information purposes of what the entire CDA project area would be, and this is the area that would be served by this initiative at first. The property must be within this CDA as highlighted on the map, and the residential components of the project must be located on the upper floors of Main Street properties that have or will have a ground floor commercial or retail use. Properties seeking to utilize the financial aid for upper floor additions must currently have a ground floor use or the ability to utilize the space for such use in the future to qualify for this initiative. All new construction then must comply with the Main Street form-based code. The details of the program are outlined on the slide in front of you, where we have an initial program budget of $5 million. The initiative is, as I mentioned before, supported by both the housing plan and the Main Street small area plans. The Main Street small area plan, with both plans seeking to address that need for housing. Agency participation would be determined based on the available funding and how projects would align with the guidelines and the standards that are set out by the agency board. The standards then would include different things such as the total unit count, as well as the proposed AMI levels and the length of the deed restriction for those AMI levels. We would look at only providing up to 50% of total development costs of the residential component of the project, but that maximum agency assistance could be modified at our sole discretion. The terms of the funding would be 50% of the total cost to rehabilitate or construct residential units based on available funding, and all funding will be provided in accordance with the agency's forgivable loan, and the agency funding would be secured by a deed restriction on the property. The initiative itself would be run by the housing manager with oversight from the RDA director, with support and expertise provided by the RDA manager and other staff in the community development department. Applications would be screened and approved by an approval team comprised of staff, and applicants will be notified at the end of a review period if a submission has been approved or rejected. That brings us to the end of that presentation, if anyone has any questions.
Excuse me, questions for Patrick on this initiative? Hearing none. Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you, Mayor.
Looks like it's going forward and upward and onward, right? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next discussion item is Main Street CDA interlocal agreement with the Jordan Valley Water Conservancy District. We'll bring Cody Hill back up, take care of that.
Hello again. So we are in negotiations with Jordan Valley Water Conservancy District. And let me get this pulled up here. There we go. So they have a policy whereby if they are going to enter into an interlocal agreement to participate tax increments, they require adoptions of water efficiency standards for the area that's going to receive tax increments. So what this means in the Main Street CDA is that there are 4 zones. There's RM12, there is the single family 2, there's the clean industrial, and then there's also the form-based code zones. And they would want these water efficiency standards to apply to that area if they are going to participate tax increments.
But not just in the CDA area, right?
So their policy is in the CDA area. But that is problematic because if really the only mechanism that we have to do that is by a text amendment to the zone, but it wouldn't just apply to the zone within the Main Street area. It would apply to every RM12 throughout the city, every clean industrial throughout the city. And so what planning would want to do would be to implement this citywide if we are going to implement it. And I'll get into that. So in collaborating with planning, we've been working with planning, public works, administration, our attorneys, and also Jordan Valley. And we've decided that a good solution would be to propose some language to the interlocal agreement. What's problematic is that they're kind of putting the agency in the position of the planning department and enforcement, because we don't have any teeth or legs for this. We don't alter zones. We don't affect zoning language. That's not something that the redevelopment agency does. So I'm not comfortable pretending to have that role. And so what I would like to propose is that we alter the interlocal agreement, before we even enter into it, whereby just the agency receiving their tax increment is contingent upon the city adopting water efficiency standards that are acceptable to Jordan Valley. The interlocal agreement would not obligate the city to do this. It would just make a contingent. It would just make it contingent for the agency to receive increment. And what this would do is it would allow us to execute the interlocal agreement, and then we'd have 2 or 3 or 4 or however many years we need to look at updating our water efficiency standards, and if we want to, adopting more stringent, more strict ones. And if those are in line with what Jordan Valley would like to see, and they approve those, then we'll get that tax increment. And if it doesn't, then we don't get that tax increment. They're very similar to Central Utah. It's also about 3% of our budget. So if we are able to adopt these standards, we'll get that revenue, and that would be wonderful. And if we are not, then it's really not going to break our budget to have a 3% hole in it. We can work around that. And as far as the water efficiency standards goes, here's kind of a very high level look at what it would do or how it compares to what we have right now. It's very similar to our form-based code, just because our form-based code is restrictive to landscaping. Basically, we don't want to see a lot of landscaping. We want to see a lot of vertical development. And so it's already restrictive to what you can put in. It's slightly higher than our commercial, our industrial, and our high density residential. And it is significantly higher than our residential requirements, which is basically, you need to have landscaping and not very much language in addition to that. It talks about their standards. It talks about limits on how much surface area you can have for lawns, how much mulch you need, what type of emitters you use, systems to regulate and automate it based on weather patterns, or not weather patterns, but actual weather that's happening. And it encourages water efficient plumbing fixtures. And so, yeah, that's the direction that I think would be beneficial to go. So that way, we can essentially punt on this, sign the agreement, and then if the city, if it's a direction that you want to go, you want to adopt these standards, then the agency will get this 3%. If it's not a direction that we want to go, then the outcome is essentially the same. The only difference is that we don't delay this agreement for 2 or 3 years. And so it allows us to get all of our ducks in a row and execute all the agreements at once. Are there questions?
What kind of cost is it going to cost the city to meet these obligations if we do decide to do that? I mean, there's got to be a monetary cost to do this.
Yeah, so it would go through planning. Planning would have to work with Jordan Valley to find out what standards they would want us to adopt. And their water efficiency standards aren't just commercial residential, but it's also institutional. So it would affect future development of city-owned properties. But as far as how much it would cost, I haven't looked at that. I haven't studied that.
In my mind, it's like if it's gonna cost more to do this than what we're gonna get back out of this, then I'm not sure it's such a good trade-off. I mean, obviously, we wanna become more water conservative and everything else. But if the cost is overwhelming to what we're gonna get back, I see no reason to assign it.
Oh, yeah, I agree. We would not, this is not a carrot so that we will adopt water efficiency standards. This is just a policy that they have in place that we can't get around. And so and like you know, we live in a desert, we need water efficiency standards. And if it's something that the city wants to do, then the agency will have access to this 3%. And if it's not, then the city won't. But I completely agree with you. It's doesn't balance. We're not gonna, you know, revamp all of our water efficiency standards for $500,000.
I think it should be worth noting here that separate from this, in the future, if anybody needs to up their contract with Jordan Valley, if these standards aren't adopted, they are going to double our current rate for any additional contracted amount. So that's just another point to consider.
Well, and maybe that.
And I
guess
That's a dollar. There's a dollar amount associated with that.
That's the stick.
And currently, things evolve and change, so don't hold me to it. But currently, I don't see an immediate need to up our contract. But it is something that we'll probably have to look at in the future.
Well, if we keep developing Jordan Bluffs and we keep developing other things around with these bigger projects, eventually we're gonna have to. I mean, there's no way around it. You can't just keep building and not eventually need more water, even if we keep conservative.
Correct. So, and anyway, I just thought that was worth noting.
And that's why I asked what the monetary benefits for and against, and there is for and against apparently.
Yeah.
Well, and just to reinforce what Cody is saying though too, is that by entering into it the way that it's being crafted, doesn't lock us into that, but it does create the ability that if we then have to jump into a citywide policy change because of additional water, we need additional water from Jordan Valley, then we have the ability to then just go and say to Jordan Valley, we're now adopted this, so give us our money.
Right.
Please.
And if we trigger in 2024, but we don't get the water standards until 2030, then we'll just get the tax increment for the remainder of the participation period. So it's not, we have to do it by 2024 or we're done.
Seems to make sense to do it then, right? Is that what I'm getting from everyone, the staff included? You guys, yeah, I mean, it makes sense to me.
Okay, then we'll craft the language that way and then have them consider it. They're going to consider it in June. And so either late June or early July, I'll come back with hopefully a signed interlocal agreement from them for you to consider.
Thank you, Cody.
Thank you.
All right, that's it for our agenda.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Make it that long every time.
Here you go.
It's only 9
You're
o'clock.
gonna get punished next.
Sure we don't have another 2 hours?
Yeah, right.
How'd I do, Lisa?
Could have done those 14.
There's a house, 2 houses down from me.
Approval.
That'll be the determination if I run into it. There's a home, 2 houses.
Have a good
Houses
week.
down, it's just one piece there. It's $150,000.
You gonna follow Paul home?
Wait, I got a tracker. Third meeting?
You're gonna video that for us, right? Okay.
No, that's.